recorder. Oh, Christopher Eagleton coming in. Hello, Philip. See a few other familiar faces. Hello, Dryson. Lewis. That's Mr. Pilot. Good to see your face here. Linda's here. Seth. Lewis, are you in the city or are you out and about? Are you on the fringes?
I live in Princeton now.
Oh, Princeton. Well, dang it. How far is that from Manhattan?
It's like an hour and a half.
Train. You can take a train
Okay.
there.
Yeah, the train's fast. My wife commutes twice a week. Train's like 50 minutes.
It's fun too. It's a nice
Got it.
ride.
Yeah, it is a nice ride.
Well, I'm trying to decide if I should, let you convince me to come down there, or if I should lean on you to come up here.
Oh, I mean, I'm in the city for meetings sometimes.
Okay.
Where
Well,
are
then,
you? Are you in New York?
yeah, I'm in New York. So just ping me whenever you're up this way.
Oh yeah, I will.
Be fun to hang out.
Yeah, it'd be good to see you.
That goes for anybody and everybody else who's here. Linda, you're on my list.
Yeah.
Like,
I
just
came back from the city.
Well, Nico and I had lunch yesterday and we were talking about you. So if your ears were burning,
Okay.
blame Nico.
Probably because Linda is the encourager. If we have an encourager in our community, Linda is the one.
I'm seeing it. Other folks dropping in. Okay, it's about 2 minutes after. So I guess, Tim, we should get rolling here.
Yeah, it's good to be back, Joel, by the way. I know I was gone for 2 weeks and you missed me that first week. You had a technical director issue. You didn't have me pressing all the buttons you needed to make that show go off, right?
Forgot about that. Oops. I'm going to spotlight you before I spotlight me. But yeah, it's good to have you back. Where you had a little jaunt across Europe or something, right?
Yeah, man. What a great trip. It's so awesome. Anybody that's been to the old world kind of knows how amazing it can be to just be in the old world, love that space, love that time. And I had a much needed family vacation. My wife turned a big number, so we spent some time together. It was really wonderful. So thanks for giving me that time and everyone's patience. I know that there's community messages everywhere for me. I haven't had a chance to address them all, but we'll get to them.
Big round number. So tell Katie congrats on 30.
Yeah, I will do.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to this week's weekly briefing. To remind you, or if this is new to you, this is the 30-minute time slot where Tim and I, and sometimes a special guest or people from our community, we pause and say, hey, what's going on in the world? What's going on in our industry? Or is there some trend or hot button issue that we need to talk about, that business owners of studios and production companies and so forth should be talking about or be made aware of? And Tim, this week let's say we saw a thread or maybe several in the community that were these owners processing, like, what's going on? I know we're in a downturn, but really, like, come on, what's the deal? So what was your observation?
Yeah. First of all, I think that this week has been a great example of how good the community is when they're working together, to have people asking questions about career and the pivot and struggling with business. There was other questions about just being on employees, and the community is doing an amazing job of encouraging, giving details, and even very specific step-by-step directions to how to get through a downturn or how to kind of work through some of these issues. Amazing. It's just really fun to be an observer and be part of it. And I'll just say publicly, you're welcome. But Joel and I also want to say thank you for being part of community. We feel blessed that we get to be in a position where we can just invite people in and let them be people together. So what an awesome group of community members that we have. What struck my heart this week was the conversation about this idea of, is it time to quit? Like, the struggle is real, the possibility is a necessity, and how do I know, should I keep on going? I think the question was, should I never give up? or, some people are giving testimony to, no, to be honest, there's good needs to move on or pivot or try something different or become an employee or whatever those encouragements were. So it sounded like a real conversation, and many of the names I see over here on our list were part of that conversation.
Yeah, and thank you for those of you that jumped into that conversation and shared your perspective. I thought it was also really impressive, Tim, just to see it. Well, first of all, I would say this is kind of a cool statistic that we've seen behind the scenes in the community, that there's 500 and something total members in the community. And I want to say like roughly half of those are, what was the number, Tim? They're checking in like once a week.
Yeah, within the last 7 days, it was 50%. And if we say like the last 14 days, it gets up to almost 70% of people are engaged in reading, at least. When it comes to posts, we're responding to what is going on or not, but there are definitely a lot of people talking and sharing and living this thing out together. So it's really great.
So I'm just blown away when I hear that, because I think business owners are like the toughest, right? It's hard to get on their radar. It's hard to get their attention. So the fact that most of you are checking in once every week or two and reading, and then when you see these posts from people that are having struggles, and for people to actually chime in, share their whole story, sit down and write 20, 30 minutes of a comment, it's an incredible example of how much owners, for whatever reason, business owners tend to be very generous. They actually want to help. They want to give. They're not these selfish or greedy or overly insensitive people that some might characterize when they think of business owners. So I was just very impressed seeing people chime in and say, hey, I can relate. I remember when I was there, and here's some advice. Here's some things to consider. So in that spirit, Tim, what were some of your thoughts when you were seeing some of these posts? Because I think what we're seeing is this downturn that, say, started kind of at the beginning of the year. And we kind of looked at those numbers and we all said, yep, there it is. That's when it started happening. And that downturn is perhaps bottomed out right about now. And maybe the bottom is a tiny bit behind us, maybe, but it's such a gradual thing that there are people wondering, is this ever going to end? And do I just hang on? And I feel like a failure. Where did your mind go?
Yeah, well, specifically, there was a post where someone just said, do you ever just feel like giving up? And the question really, and the reality of just not being able to pay the bills, struggling with cash flow. Some of us business owners are dealing with supporting other people and their families by having employees or adding to the benefits, trying to keep up with your employees' expenses because trying to give them raises while your clients are cutting things back. And I think that there's just a reality of how that pinch really feels sometimes. And this entrepreneurial journey that we're on, which, whenever you got started, there was a sense of discovery and newness and competition that you knew you can participate in. And as time moves on and technology moves on, and, the seasons of the industry kind of hit different peaks and valleys, that vision kind of shifts for individuals. And that's what I heard specifically were in the responses is people relating to one another of, it is real. The struggle is real, and business ownership has its seasons. Sometimes what has worked in the past just isn't hitting anymore. And what was once desirable from me in my studio isn't what people are looking for in the moment. And, to recognize maybe I need to do something else isn't always the easiest thing to address as a business owner, because that would mean you have to do one more thing, on your plate. And it's already hard enough to keep up with all the demands that you currently have.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, so my days as a studio owner, right? I'm still a business owner, just it's very different, right? Doing what I'm doing now versus running a studio. But I did that for 20 years. And I remember it felt like about every 3 years, maybe every 4, there was a big enough pivot that it felt like, man, we're having to sort of reinvent kind of who we are, what we do, our offering, or the types of clients we're working for, the work we're doing. And like you said, that first time you do that, you're still young and you're ambitious and you're like, this is okay, this is going to be cool, this is going to be fun. But when you're 15 years in or 12, 18 years in and you're pivoting for the 5th time, the 6th time, the 7th time, it goes without saying, you start to wonder, really? Like, is this my lot in life? And what if I can't do it again? Because every time you do it, it's always easy to say in hindsight, oh yeah, just hang in there, just stay strong. But when you're actually living in it, it's survival. And there's nothing that says, oh, if I just hang on, it'll all work out. That's just the classic people that actually survived. They look back and they tell you, yeah, just hang in there, you'll be fine. And it's like, no, because all the people that didn't survive, they're not here right now saying,
They're not the ones encouraging you, right?
right.
No, I think there is some reality to what you're painting here, and that business owners, there's some simple scorecards to look at and recognize if it's working or not working for you. And
Okay.
your entrepreneurial hat still works. There are things that you can do with the needs plus resources equals solution kind of environment, but it might not be the resources you have your hands on right now. Or you might not be able to hear the needs that the clients are looking for. In Revolve, we're asking those questions, right? This last week in Revolve, we challenged people to think of new questions. And hopefully people are being challenged by that exercise, because the thought of not just selling the service that you've always sold, but to listen differently in a different environment, you might discover something you don't like about what's required and what is required of you. So I think there's a reality to looking at and addressing those issues. But, when you're 15, 16 years into it and you don't have the savings account that you need to have to retire, how many more years are you going to put in to this work, this industry, before it doesn't make sense anymore? If you're just getting by, you've bought yourself a job for that amount of time, but the investment part of the work isn't really, you're not getting those gains from that investment that you're looking for. And that's when we have to get really, really serious about, is this the time and effort that you should be putting into your life's work in order to get your life out of the work? And what I mean by that is everything else in life besides the job, the project, the budget, the bid, the people, the resources, all that stuff that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I've seen some amazing people exit in a very strong way, selling their business or just simply closing their business, pivoting themselves personally, moving on from their small agency that they own to a very large agency, either by acquisition or simply closing and taking a job. Those are all very viable opportunities that you've worked toward. And because of your life and the time and experience that you've had in your business ownership, there's a lot of amazing work that you can do and value you provide to others. And we should just recognize that and ask those questions. Also, then how do I survive the next month?
Yeah. What is this thing, this narrative? Because I'm thinking about this word that comes up often, right? Like, I feel like a failure, right? When you're in this downturn. And I think one thing we find often inside of the community is people saying, I was scared to admit that we haven't made hardly $1 for this entire year. And I just burned through all our savings. And then somebody else says, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Me too. And you start realizing, oh, okay, we're all on the same journey. And the tide is this time maybe not lifting all boats, it's lowering all boats. But isn't it interesting how much we have this built-in narrative that just says, I feel like such a failure, right? My business is failing. And I don't know, I feel like the words I've been hearing you say this week are looking for maybe a new, I don't know, perspective or a new way to view that season and what it's leading to and what it's taking you towards.
It's such an unfair look at yourself, isn't it? To say there's only two choices, success or failure. Like what a horrible mechanism or measurement you have on yourself of like, either I'm succeeding or I'm failing, when in reality, we're always working against tension. There's just never a moment in life where there is not tension pushing against us and we have to push back. And all that tension does is create discovery. So whenever you discover something new, it's an evolution, it's a time, it's an opportunity, it's a revolution. There's this revelation moment that pushes towards the new thing that you're evolving into and becoming an evolved creature or evolved company. And sometimes I feel like that tension and the discovery is telling you something different about yourself 15 years later than when you first started your business. That's a reality check, or even maybe 5 years after you start your business. That tension is telling you something new about yourself. And that discovery is important to listen to. I have a personal conviction that we're created for our time and our generation, right? It's our moment to steal and push through. And that tension gives us that discovery of what's really happening. And if we listen, we'll do well, regardless of how we make our revenue in business or make our income for our family. That's not the success or failure measurements we should be living by.
You're reminding me of this quote that maybe some people here have heard, or maybe it's very common, but I just encountered it for the first time. So yay, Joel. But it's a Nelson Mandela quote. He said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And here's another one. This one came from, this was James Kemp. This one, okay, Tim, tell me what you think of this. Does anyone agree with this statement? Failure doesn't exist. Failure is merely a judgment of our intended experience compared to what actually happened.
Yeah, we live with bias in our mind of what expectations are, but I often feel like that ability to future cast becomes a curse if we are using that as the only possible outcome for our effort. When what it should be doing is opening up our mind to possibility and opportunity, giving ourselves the permission to pivot and change to find the reality that we can live. So sure, I wanted a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't even want to pay for one anymore, right? But the reality of like when you first get into something, that dream or that hope gives you a desire and an energy and an effort to discover something new. And my personal journey was by discovering that I love supporting others that were amazing, had amazing creative ability, greater than I could ever touch myself personally. So my journey changed in that discovery. But if it wasn't for the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I would have never shown up in Hollywood and tried to get a job to begin with, right? So it's that revelation that we're actually looking for in all the work we're doing. It's the revelation we're looking for, not the outcome of expected results that we planned for that we had no control over as we got into it.
So I can say this now because it's laughable. If I said
But the Hollywood star is not laughable enough, Joel.
No, it is. I'm about to say, everyone here, if I said, well, apparently Tim's career, right, is a failure because he didn't get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Right.
Everyone would laugh because they would say, but look at Tim's career and he's done this and that and pivot and change and all these things. But it is kind of funny how when you put it in context, but if we went back to the time when you first arrived in Hollywood and you were knocking on doors, if somebody had said, by the way, you're never going to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, that might have been like a gut punch to you.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Like if the dream wasn't there, I didn't have the energy or desire to park my car in Hollywood and go look for a job, which is how I got my first job. But the discovery of the people and the resources and the opportunities, who would have ever thought of producing a title sequence was even you know how many people I would explain in my lifetime that the title sequence was separate from the film and other people made it. It's, you know, it's an interesting discovery as you kind of walk through your life journey. But how foolish I would have been to wanted to hold back all of that just for an ego boost for a second, for something that doesn't amount to very much. And even funny, even just with that one idea of measurement, you know, I could walk down Hollywood Boulevard and my kid can walk next to me and the number of names they don't recognize. I mean, even if it's printed on the boulevard, it disappears in culture anyway, the relevance of that effort. But the relationships I have, or the movements that are taking place, the ideas that come out that need to be given to others, I think that's worth living for. So when I hear the community telling that to one another, I love this community and the way that they function. I think that's what we know about each other is we have equal energy trying to get something out of ourselves to make the world a better place. And we want to encourage one another to keep on going, no matter what that is.
By the way, you just reminded me. So I had lunch with Nico from Resonate and yesterday here in New York, and we were talking about owners connecting sort of in the community, outside the community. And I was mentioning, I guess you were active in the direct messages, right? In the DMs in the community. He said, yeah. I definitely have a lot of conversations going with other owners, which I think is super cool. And I mentioned, oh, would you want to create a breakout group to get together with Linda and these other people that you're in Revolve with? And he said, oh, well, how would that work? And I went into the community and I said, oh, let me turn this switch on to where we can let members create breakout groups. I thought, just create one. Let's see what happens. So who knows? Maybe that's a way that other members can start saying, you know, let's get together in this small little private space and talk about this and process these items and so forth, which I think is very cool. So Tim, I was thinking, you know, was it yesterday that I mentioned my story about how the word failure was reframed for me personally?
Yeah, because you personally had a journey of business ownership and then no longer business ownership. And I think a lot of people have heard that story, but for those who haven't, it's good for them to remind them of the day that you called me and said, hey, I want to do something different. And a plan started taking place and we started asking, what are the real things that are true about Joel that need to be there? But you personally had a revelation talking to somebody that kind of reframed it for you.
Yeah, and I think it's worth sharing because everyone here, I think, is going to go through this experience. Like if you're living and you're breathing, I think you'll have this experience, especially as a business owner, because after I exited my studio, all right, which was a big transition, 20 years closing that chapter. For the next 2 years, there was kind of this grieving process. And as I'm processing this, I remember one day I was talking to my therapist, I was talking about, in the 20th year when Impossible failed. And she does this whole like, wait, that's interesting. Why did you say failed? And I said, because this, and this happened. And she says, I don't know, that's interesting because based on everything I've been hearing for the past, 12 years about your story, I don't think I would use the word failure. I would think I would say instead that your business ran its course. And that idea completely blew me away because I sat down and realized, oh, you're right. The world changed. So many things changed that even if I could still be running that company, I wouldn't, right? Whether it was at that time or today, it ran its course. That was a season of my life. And then for those of you that know my story since then, what's ironic is I'm happier, I'm more fulfilled, I'm more used? What's the word, Tim? Like all the gifts I have, you were like, hey, you've got so much more to give and offer. If you come work with me, let's go help the whole industry.
Yeah.
That if I had held on so tightly to Impossible, think about what wouldn't have happened. Like you and I wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't have this community. We wouldn't have, be lifting up the whole industry. But now I realize it ran its course, and that's a big idea I wanted to share.
Yeah, I couldn't get a partner with 20 years of experience without someone putting 20 years into that, right? So
Right.
that leverage that we have from your experience to relate and to understand and to kind of know the ropes, and even some of the details you gave Carolyn in her post of how you move through seasons and kind of push things. That's a reality of what's there. When I talk about the seasons of the creative career, that's exactly what we're talking about, that we're actually capturing as we move along through our career. We're capturing influence or experience that we leverage forward, but it's only valuable to others, right? You can't,
Right.
that 20 years experience to hold on to yourself, Joel, sure, you could have been comfortable doing something you love. You probably, not knowing it better, would have loved that as well. But the fact that you have this opportunity to share that with others creates opportunities for others to thrive, as well as help you thrive yourself. And that influence and that experience that you gain isn't just valuable as a consultant. There are studios that would hire you immediately to have your experience into their workflow. You can possibly even make more money. I've helped business owners exit to go make more money as an employee than they would ever make as an individual, because of the entrepreneurial time that they put into problem solving isn't so invaluable to another business owner who's living the entrepreneurial life, to have someone to relate to and live through that. Or there's a lot of specialties that we've developed are really, really important to certain segments and are moving into different segments. To pivot out of one area and move into another is just as viable as anything else. It's the opportunities that you're stealing along the way is what we want you to create. So there's a funny encouragement we have right now, isn't there? It's kind of a paradox of, by quitting, you're moving forward, or in order to move forward, you have to quit. Those two things really work together. And I hear some of the hope that people are giving each other in community is to recognize, no, to be honest, sometimes this is the moment you're making a choice to let go of one part of your life and make a new part of your life.
It's funny, you're reminding me of a conversation that I had with a group of individuals years ago that were, let's just say that they had all these big goals and aspirations. And I remember saying to them, I think you're going to accomplish most all of those goals and dreams that you have. But what I've learned is it probably won't look like what you think it's going to look like. And that occurred to me right now, because if I sat down with any owner here and said, what is really your goal and your dream apart from your business? Like, just put it in human terms. There might be a version that's like, oh, the way for you to accomplish that is to put it down.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like there's a larger meta, and that doesn't mean failure. It means transition, and it means change, and that's super difficult, right? And there's grief and all that goes with that. But it is interesting to think, everyone here, we're all moving forward, we're all learning and growing. I think we're going to accomplish all these goals and dreams that we have, but it may not look like what we thought it was going to look like. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, and I'll just say specifically, I know that we help people thrive in business by giving them certain tools, encouragement. We basically close the gap. That if you don't have the experience, you don't understand what it takes to close that gap. And we can close that gap or speed up the process and help people thrive in business. We help people thrive in life when we give them permission to go live their life outside of their business, or let the business finance their life. It's one of the first priorities we've set with entrepreneurs, is to say, why are you giving it all back to your company? The company is supposed to be providing for you, not you providing for your company. And these decision points are moments when you realize, I'm giving way too much to this business that's giving me something back. I should recognize there's an opportunity or a need here. But this career one is, in thriving, is so hard to untap with business owners, because of this promise that they've made to themselves of what success looks like. And we don't say at RevThink, we help business owners succeed in business life and career because success is really a thought process that leads to failure if that is the only alternative to what your initial idea is. But thriving is possible in all situations. So thriving in business, thriving in life, thriving in career means career pivots are good, necessary. Business pivots, good and necessary. And life pivots are good and necessary. Let's lean into them. Let's recognize the moment that has come, and let's live out the moments that we've been given, and in encouragement for others, right? That's how we're going to kind of get through these times together and make a good use of the time that we have while we're here.
So I know we're at the bottom of the hour here, so we should adjourn. I will say an encouragement for those of you inside the community. Tomorrow inside Confab, my guest is our friend and collaborator, co-conspirator, Tim, longtime client of RevThink, PJ Richardson from Laundry. And we're going to get PJ's perspective because he commented on one of these threads and really offered this very eloquent, hey, been there, done that. I've had to pivot and change and adapt and all this. And tomorrow we're going to open it up to everybody. So if you're inside the community, come inside Confab and hear this conversation, be part of the conversation, and let's actually get intimate in a private space where we can say, hey, how are you dealing with these ups, these downs? Is it time to pivot, or do you want to continue to persevere? So I'm really looking forward, and I want to say thanks to PJ for graciously offering his time to come in and share.
And that's tomorrow morning. What time Eastern time?
That is, let me look at my calendar
Noon,
here.
right?
Confab is noon Eastern. Yeah, 9 Pacific in the US.
I'm going to, I just put into the community in the events area. Let me just put your name on this real quick. Save. Oops, I think I did that. So create an event so people can RSVP and be reminded. And then Joel, you can communicate where to go, what the URL is. I think it's revthink.live/ Confab, right?
Confab. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll make sure that it's open to all, and we'll create that event in the community. So everyone should get an invite. And yeah, we'll look forward to having a bunch of folks there to just process this thing that we all need to process together and help people who need encouragement. And it's also good for those that share their perspective. I think often it's very healing and helpful for some to share their story and just get it out there.
Yeah, I'll just
All
say
right,
this.
Tim.
If anybody needs to get a hold of us, you should just DM us on community. We're totally available and happy to have any conversation with you. We'd love to help you just walk through the process, hear what's going on, give you some direct communication, and share with you specific stories we know that people have had in making these decisions. I don't want anybody to feel like they're doing this on their own. Clearly they're not. You just one post in the community, 31 comments pop up right away. There's a lot of great stuff happening, but we're here for you in any way possible. So please reach out to Joel or myself directly. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you to begin things off, and then encourage you to go with other people. So we say this a lot, and I don't know how else more to mean it, but we truly love working and doing what we do. We love all of you. We want to be here to help you thrive in any way possible. So let us know how we can help.
Thanks for the comments here from those of you that chimed in. Thanks for being here. Tim, thank you as always. This is your weekly briefing. I forgot to mention, this was Wednesday, May 24th. So got that in there. All right, everyone. We'll hopefully see a lot of you tomorrow inside Confab. Otherwise, we'll see you next week for next week's briefing. Bye.
Thanks,
for
Joel.
now. Bye.